John Miller, at the seasoned age of 60, carried not just his luggage, but a hefty resume filled with decades of law enforcement experience as he stepped into the quaint town of Dalton, Georgia. The town, nestled among sprawling fields and aged oak trees, was picturesque, often described in brochures as a gateway to the Old South's charm and hospitality. However, beneath its scenic surface, Dalton was a community tightly woven with the threads of tradition and long-standing local customs, not all of which were welcoming to outsiders. The morning sun cast long shadows across the wooden porches of Dalton as John drove down Main Street. He noticed the faded paint on the shop fronts, the American flags fluttering on almost every porch, and more significantly, the curious stares of the locals. The town's social fabric was evident. People here were interconnected by years of shared histories, and an outsider like him stuck out like a sore thumb. Deciding to get a lay of the land before officially reporting for duty, John swapped his sheriff's uniform for more nondescript attire, a worn-out baseball cap and a faded blue jacket. His aim was to blend in as just another passerby, to observe the town without the preconceived notions his badge might bring. His first stop was at Maggie's Diner, a local institution known for its blue ribbon apple pie and the best coffee this side of the Mason-Dixon line. As John stepped inside, the chatter briefly paused, a dozen pairs of eyes covertly sizing him up. The old wooden floors creaked under his weight as he made his way to the counter. He ordered a coffee, black, no sugar, and took a seat by the window, his eyes casually scanning the patrons. In the corner booth, two deputies, clearly off duty but still donning their uniforms, were deep in conversation. Their laughter was loud, punctuated by occasional glances in John's direction. It wasn't long before John realized the source of their amusement. He was the punchline. Their smirks were not particularly subtle. Neither was their attempt to size him up as an unwelcome intruder in their small-town sanctuary. Feeling the weight of their stares, John sipped his coffee slowly, his mind turning over his next moves. Dalton was his new home, and these were his future colleagues. It was clear he had his work cut out for him, not just in enforcing the law, but first in breaking down the barriers of skepticism that this close-knit community had built around itself. John's morning at Maggie's Diner was just the first taste of Dalton's chilly reception. As he left the diner, the whispers followed him like shadows weaving through the crisp morning air. Determined not to be deterred by the cold welcome, John continued his exploration of the town, trying to get a feel for the pulse of the community and its people. Later that day, while walking through Dalton Central Park, John felt the weight of eyes upon him. It wasn't just curiosity now, there was a palpable tension in the air. He noticed two figures in particular who seemed to take an interest in him, deputies Bob and Rick, the same ones from the diner. They approached John with a swagger that spoke volumes about their authority and the respect they commanded in this small town. "Hey, old-timer," Bob called out with a smirk, his voice loud enough to draw attention from nearby families. "You seem lost. Need help finding your way?" John paused, turning to face him with a calm demeanor. "Just getting to know the neighborhood," he replied evenly, not giving away his position or intentions. Rick laughed, a harsh sound that carried an edge of challenge. "Well, maybe. Keep moving. Strangers don't last long around here," he said, stepping closer. It was a clear threat, but John wasn't easily intimidated. Instead of responding, he simply nodded and continued his walk. But the deputies weren't done. They followed him, their presence a looming shadow at his back. When John stopped to admire the town's veteran memorial, Bob and Rick decided to escalate their intimidation tactics. Without warning, Bob grabbed John's arm, twisting it behind his back. "We don't like strangers snooping around," he hissed in John's ear. Rick stood by, watching with a smirk, as a few onlookers began to gather, their expressions ranging from concerned to indifferent. The situation could have spiraled further, but John's experience had taught him the value of composure. I'm sure the sheriff would be interested to hear about this welcome, John stated clearly, hoping his mention of the sheriff would give them pause. Bob's grip faltered slightly, but he quickly regained his composure. "Oh, we're just having some fun," he retorted, releasing John abruptly. The deputies backed off, but their message was clear. John was not welcome in Dalton. Shaken but resolute, John returned to his temporary residence, reflecting on the challenges ahead. It was evident that his role here would be more than just upholding the law. He would need to navigate the deep-seated traditions and local power dynamics that shaped Dalton. That evening, as he prepared for his official introduction to the sheriff's department the next day, John knew that his approach would need to be firm yet diplomatic. The morning of John's official introduction to the sheriff's department dawned clear and bright. As he donned his crisp new uniform, he felt a mix of anticipation and resolve. Today wasn't just about taking up a new position, it was about signaling a shift in how law enforcement was perceived in Dalton. He was here not only to protect and serve, but to bridge gaps and foster trust within a community woven tightly with outsiders. John arrived at the station early, the building an old brick structure that stood as a testament to Dalton's rich history. The staff was already bustling about, and as he walked in, he could feel the curious glances thrown his way. He was an unknown entity here, a narrative yet to be read. He was greeted formally by the existing staff, including Bob and Rick, who wore tight smiles that didn't quite reach their eyes. The air was thick with tension, but John addressed the room with confidence. "I am here not just as your sheriff, but as someone who hopes to work with you all to ensure Dalton remains a safe, welcoming place for everyone." His speech was met with polite applause, but the murmurs that followed spoke volumes. It was clear that his earlier encounter with Bob and Rick was an open secret, and his approach to law enforcement was already under scrutiny. Later that day, John called for his first staff meeting. He outlined his vision for the department, emphasizing transparency, accountability, and community engagement. "We are not just enforcers of the law," John explained. "We are members of this community, trusted to uphold its values and safety." The reaction was mixed. Some officers nodded in agreement, eager for a change, while others, including Bob and Rick, seemed reserved, if not skeptical. John understood their hesitance. Change was always daunting, especially in a place that held on to its ways as firmly as Dalton did. As the days turned into weeks, John made concerted efforts to engage with the community. He attended local events, visited schools, and held public forums where people could voice their concerns and ask questions directly to their new sheriff. His open-door policy at the station slowly started to change public perception. One afternoon, while walking through the town square, John was approached by an elderly woman named Mrs. Clara, who had lived in Dalton her entire life. She had watched the town evolve, yet some things, she noted, remained stubbornly the same. "Sheriff, I was skeptical at first," she admitted, her voice steady and sincere. "But I see you trying to do good here. It's about time someone did." Her words, simple yet profound, reinforced John's resolve. He knew he had a long road ahead, but it was affirmations like these that fueled his determination. As the weeks turned into months, John's efforts to integrate into the community and reshape the sheriff's department began to bear fruit. The initial resistance he faced was slowly melting away, replaced by cautious acceptance and, in some cases, genuine support. His commitment to transparency and accountability was making a noticeable difference in the department's operations and in the community's perception of law enforcement. One pivotal moment came during the annual Dalton Fall Festival, a beloved event that brought the entire town together. John saw it as an opportunity not just to participate, but to demonstrate the new spirit of the sheriff's office. Under his direction, the deputy set up a booth offering safety demonstrations and hosting a meet and greet with residents. John was there, front and center, handing out balloons to children and engaging in earnest conversations with their parents. And it was there that John met Harold, a local shop owner who had been vocal in his skepticism about the new sheriff. As they watched children playing nearby, Harold approached John, his expression mixed with curiosity and tentative respect. "I have to admit, Sheriff, I wasn't sure you were the right fit for Dalton," Harold said, his tone more reflective than accusatory. "But I can see the changes you're making. It's refreshing to see someone genuinely care about our town." John appreciated the honesty. "Thank you, Harold. It's all about building trust, one day at a time. I'm here for the long haul," he responded, his voice firm yet friendly. Later that afternoon, a minor incident tested the waters of the newfound respect and cooperation between the Sheriff's Department and the Dalton community. A dispute between two festival goers over a parking spot escalated until deputies intervened. Instead of the usual authoritative approach, the deputies, following John's example, mediated the conflict with calm and professionalism. The crowd watched, and as the situation was resolved peacefully, the approval was palpable. The people clapped and nodded in approval, visibly relieved to see a less confrontational, more community-oriented policing approach. This incident not only showcased the department's new approach, but also reinforced the community's growing trust in John's leadership. The festival ended on a high note, with many residents staying late into the evening, enjoying the music and festivities, and talking about the positive changes in their town. That night, as John walked through the dispersing crowd, he felt a deep sense of satisfaction. The barriers he had been working so hard to break down were finally showing signs of crumbling. The path ahead was still long and undoubtedly filled with challenges, but for the first time since his arrival in Dalton, John felt truly optimistic about the future. Several months had passed since John took office as the sheriff of Dalton, and his steadfast approach was beginning to reshape the town's law enforcement landscape. The relationships he had nurtured within the community were now bearing visible results, creating a new norm of interaction between the sheriff's office and the Dalton residents. However, John's true test as a leader came unexpectedly one evening when a crisis struck at the heart of Dalton. A fire broke out in the historic district, threatening some of the oldest buildings in town, including the local library. As the flames illuminated the night sky, John was quick to coordinate the response efforts. He worked alongside firefighters, directing traffic and ensuring that emergency services had clear access to the scene. The intensity of the situation brought the community together in ways John had never seen before. Residents came out in droves to offer assistance, bringing water for the firefighters and blankets for those evacuated from their homes. Amidst the chaos, John's leadership shone through. His calm demeanor and decisive actions not only helped manage the crisis effectively, but also demonstrated his genuine commitment to the safety and well-being of Dalton. In the aftermath of the fire, John organized a community meeting to discuss the response and recovery efforts. It was during this meeting that the depth of his impact on Dalton became truly evident. Residents expressed their gratitude not only for his actions during the fire, but also for his ongoing efforts to transform the sheriff's office into a more community-focused agency. "I never thought I'd see the day when our sheriff's department would lead by example," said one longtime resident during the meeting, her voice thick with emotion. "You've changed what it means to be in law enforcement in our town." The feedback was overwhelmingly positive, and for John, it was a validation of his hard work and dedication. The incident had not only tested his leadership in times of crisis, but also solidified his role within the community. Dalton was no longer a place resistant to change. It was a community that embraced its new sheriff and the values he stood for. As the town rebuilt from the fire, John's focus on community involvement and proactive safety measures became central themes. He implemented regular safety drills and community awareness programs, which further strengthened the bond between the sheriff's office and the residents of Dalton. That fall, as the leaves began to change color, John felt a profound connection to the town he now called home. The challenges were many, but the rewards, seeing a community unite and grow stronger together, were far greater. As the year drew to a close, John reflected on his journey since arriving in Dalton. It had been a year of profound transformation, not just for him, but for the entire community. The once skeptical town had gradually embraced his leadership, and the changes implemented under his watch had become integral to the town's identity. One crisp autumn morning, as John walked through the newly rebuilt section of the historic district, he noticed the tangible signs of renewal. The library that had nearly succumbed to the fire now stood restored, a symbol of the community's resilience and spirit. It was not just the buildings that had been rejuvenated. The people of Dalton, too, had a renewed sense of pride and optimism. John's thoughts were interrupted by the sound of laughter and calling. A group of school children on a field trip to the library ran past him, their faces bright with excitement. Watching them, John felt a surge of hope for the future. These children would grow up in a Dalton markedly different from the one he had first encountered. They would inherit a legacy of unity, respect, and community, a legacy he had helped shape. Later that day, at the annual town hall meeting, John stood before the community to deliver his year-end report. The room was filled with familiar faces, many of whom had initially resisted his reforms, but now greeted him with smiles and nods of recognition. As I stand here today, John began, his voice steady and clear, I am reminded of our first meetings filled with doubts and reservations, but look at us now, stronger, closer, and more united than ever. We've proven that change is not only possible, but beneficial. The applause that followed was warm and enthusiastic. After the meeting, many residents approached John to express their gratitude. You've given us more than just safety. You've given us a community we're proud to be part of, one resident told him, her voice laden with emotion. As the evening progressed, John felt a profound sense of fulfillment. His time in Dalton had taught him invaluable lessons about leadership, resilience, and the power of community. He knew that his tenure as sheriff might one day come to an end, but the foundation he had built in Dalton was strong. The principles of fairness, transparency, and community collaboration were now embedded in the fabric of the town. Reflecting on his journey, John realized that the true measure of his success was not in the accolades or acknowledgments, but in the smiles of the people passing by, the laughter of children playing in the park, and the peaceful evenings that now define Dalton. As the stars began to appear in the twilight sky, John walked home with a light heart, knowing that his efforts had not only changed the town, but had also redefined what it meant to serve and protect. Dalton was no longer just a place on the map. It was a beacon of hope and a testament to the enduring power of dedicated leadership and community spirit. This powerful story teaches us several invaluable lessons about leadership, community, and the impact of preconceived notions on justice. John Miller demonstrates that true leadership extends beyond authoritative actions. It's about empathy, understanding, and a commitment to reform. Effective leadership can transform an entire community, breaking down barriers of distrust and resistance. The story highlights the importance of involving the community in law enforcement processes. By fostering open communication and mutual respect, a leader can cultivate a more secure and supportive environment. John's experience underscores the challenges posed by racial prejudices and stereotypes, particularly in law enforcement. His journey illustrates how patience, resilience, and proactive engagement can turn challenging situations into opportunities for growth and understanding. If you're inspired by John's journey and want to see more content that explores the themes of leadership and community transformation, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Hit the bell icon to stay updated with our latest videos. Did John's story move you? Hit the like button and share this video to spread the message of positive change and effective community engagement. Help us bring these important stories to a wider audience. What do you think about the methods John used to transform his community? Could these strategies be effective in your own community? Have you experienced or witnessed similar transformative leadership? Share your thoughts and stories in the comments section below. We love hearing from you and learning how diverse communities navigate change. Together, let's learn from John's story and encourage more leaders to take bold steps towards community-focused law enforcement. Your engagement helps us bring these transformative stories to light. Thank you for watching and contributing to a more understanding and connected world.